All right, let's dive right in. We're going deep into the dark corners of the internet, hunting for something that's designed to be invisible, malware. Specifically, malware that uses the encrypted Tor network to cover its tracks. For cybersecurity pros, this has always been like chasing a ghost in the machine.
And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if a piece of malware wraps all of its communications in layers and layers of encryption, how in the world are you supposed to know it's even there? It's like trying to spot a criminal in a pitch-black tunnel.
You see, for years, this has been a huge blind spot. Tor is an incredible tool for privacy, no doubt, but that same power of anonymity can be, and absolutely is, exploited by bad actors. Your traditional security tools, they're basically useless here. They can see the encrypted tunnel exists, but they have no idea about the rats scurrying around inside.
So that's our starting point. We've got this invisible crime scene. This rat in the tunnel, it's a piece of malicious software talking to its masters, and we can't see a single thing. Or can we?
This brings us to the breakthrough moment. The researchers behind this realized you don't actually need to crack the encryption. You don't have to blast open the tunnel. You just have to listen very, very carefully for the rat's footsteps.
The whole technique is called traffic analysis, and you can think of it like digital forensics, but for data streams. Even if you can't read the messages themselves, you can learn a ton by just analyzing the patterns of that communication. It's not about what is being said, it's all about how it's being said. And it turns out every piece of malware leaves behind these little digital fingerprints, even when it's encrypted. An AI can be trained to spot these patterns. We're talking about things like the exact size of the data packets, whether data is mostly flowing in or out, those tiny little pauses between transmissions, and even just how long a connection stays open. To the right AI, these patterns are as unique as a signature. So, with these digital fingerprints as our main clues, the AI detective was given two very different missions. First, just find the bad guys. And second, figure out exactly what kind of bad guys they are. Let's see how it did.
All right, so the first challenge was the most critical one. Can the system just reliably tell the difference between normal, everyday Tor traffic and malware? A simple yes or no. But man, the stakes are incredibly high.
And the result was, well, it was perfect. The system hit a 100% recall rate. To put that in plain English, it means it found every single malicious connection they threw at it. Not one got away. Every rat in that tunnel was spotted.
But, finding every threat is only half the job. You also have to avoid crying wolf all the time. And here again, the system was just brilliant. The false positive rate, that's when it flags a safe connection as dangerous, was consistently under 1.2%. So it's not just a sensitive alarm, it's a really, really reliable one. Now, let's move on to that second mission, which is a whole lot harder. Okay, you found a bad connection, but can you tell what it's doing? Is it ransomware getting ready to lock up your files, or is it a worm trying to spread to other computers? So on this front, the system correctly figured out the right type of malware about 40% of the time. Now, I know what you're thinking. That number seems kind of low compared to that perfect detection score, right? But telling the difference between two kinds of encrypted malware just from traffic patterns is incredibly complex. For a task this hard, getting it right 40% of the time is actually a huge step forward. It shows the system isn't just finding threats, it's starting to understand them. So how did it get such amazing accuracy, especially on just finding the malware? Well, the secret was a really clever new method the researchers called the two-clue approach. And this is where things get really cool. So the researchers basically used two different kinds of clues. The first one, connection level features, is like taking a magnifying glass to the problem. It zooms in and looks really intensely at one single data stream. Packet sizes, timings, all that stuff. The second clue, host level features, is more like checking someone's entire mail history. It takes a step back and looks at the overall behavior of the infected computer across all of its connections. This table right here tells the whole story. Just look at that recall column. If you only use the magnifying glass, the connection level clues, the system catches about 63% of the threats. If you only use the mail history, the host level clues, it gets up to 76%. But when you combine them, the recall jumps to over 81%, and look at that false positive rate. It drops to a crazy low 0.88%. The big takeaway here is that these two clues together are way more powerful than either one is on its own.
The real game changer here is that host-level analysis.
It's just so effective because it catches stuff the magnifying glass would totally miss. Things like a whole bunch of short, failed connection attempts, or maybe the malware trying to contact old, dead Tor routers. And maybe the best part of all? This info can be pulled from standard network logs that most big organizations already have lying around.
All right, now for the ultimate challenge, the final exam for any security system. Could this AI detective catch a killer that it had never, ever been trained to recognize? It was time for the zero-day test. A zero-day threat is pretty much the boogeyman of cybersecurity. It's a brand new piece of malware, fresh out in the wild, that no existing security tool has a signature for. It is the definition of an unknown unknown. The adversary for this big test was a really nasty piece of work called Eternal Rocks. It was actually a successor to the infamous WannaCry ransomware. The key thing is, the AI model had never seen its traffic patterns, never analyzed its fingerprints. It was going in completely blind. So this chart shows you how the system held up. Look at that first bar. When the brand new malware was just 1% of all the traffic, a true needle in a haystack. Its precision was about 55%. But as the malware got more active, jumping up to 5% and then 20% of the traffic, you can see the system's confidence just skyrocket, hitting over 95% precision. But here it is. This is the most astounding result of the whole thing, the recall. Even against a brand new, never-before-seen enemy, hidden in a flood of normal data, the system still found 100% of the threats. It didn't let a single one slip by. It actually caught the ghost.
So what does this all mean? Well, it means we're looking at a new kind of digital sentry, one that doesn't need a list of known criminals to do its job. Instead, it just watches for suspicious behavior, which allows it to spot brand new threats the very moment they show up. The researchers themselves came up with the perfect analogy for it. They said this method is like using two-factor authentication for your network security. The connection-level features are the first factor, like checking the password. The host-level features are the second factor, the code from your phone that proves it's really you. Together, they give you a much, much higher level of certainty. Look, this research is a powerful new weapon in the cybersecurity fight, but it also leaves us with a really critical question for the future. In this endless cat and mouse game between the attackers and the defenders, this is a huge win for the good guys. But the attackers, they're going to adapt. The question is, can our AI keep learning fast enough to stay ahead?